was definitely my first, I would say, major sport. I mean, I've done a lot, but skiing was the one I was in love with for a very long time, which led me to Colorado for extended periods of my high school, where I went to an academy. And that's where I kind of got introduced to bike racing because the Coors Classic was going on at that time. And a lot of my friends were super into it. I just started kind of riding for training, for skiing. And I did that for a number of years. And it wasn't until really my last year of high school when I kind of started racing a little bit, dabbling in it. And then I would say when I went to the University of New Mexico on a skiing scholarship is where I really got exposed to racing even more and started to realize my talent there. Subaru Montgomery basically kind of gave me my real first contract. And that was obviously the same time Lance Armstrong was on the team, Leonard Harvey-Nitz, Mike McCarthy, Steve Hack. I mean, it was the who's who of cycling at that moment. So I was kind of like the wild card for sure. I remember going to training camp and I was actually still ski racing, right? Now, so I was totally out of shape and I was getting dropped by all the sprinters up Mount Palomar in San Diego. And they're like, who is this guy, to Eddie B. And Eddie was like, hey, don't worry. This guy will, he'll be strong at some point, So, and it wasn't actually that long. And after that, I was able to qualify for some races with the team that were pretty big and kind of, I guess, prove myself a little bit. 1991 was the first time I did it, and it came down to a field sprint that year. It was a big group. I think like 40 guys came to the line. It was first time ever, I think, for that big of a group. And then the very next year in 1992, I won it solo, and I was the first person to win it solo. So that was U.S. Pro Champion, which was a huge breakthrough, obviously. I had been having a great year. 92 was obviously a phenomenal year, but that race was kind of a defining moment, I would say. I was also able to win again in 97, not the race in general, but the overall U.S. title. There was someone else came first. That was kind of a weird thing. Europeans raced in that race, so there was some interesting dynamics. But in 97, that was another amazing season, and I was also able to take away the Stars and Stripes jersey that year as well. But I think I did Philly maybe 10 times. Wow. Great race, just the fans and the course, everything. It really played to my style of racing, which was to be very, I would say, tactical, but also able to use bike handling to position myself for the climb and then save a lot of energy on the climb, the Manioc wall, which you just get supercharged with. I mean, there's fans going nuts, right? So it's an easy race to be fired up for and to just, give your best. Even if you're maybe not having a great season, you could have a great day and still be up there in Philly. But I do remember our training camp where we go to California for 6 to 8 weeks before the season began, and they were always the best. I mean, we did some amazing rides, and you can imagine now, like most of the domestic teams do like a week, 10 days maybe. We were literally living together for 6 weeks to 8 weeks before going to Europe. I mean, everybody knew everybody's strengths and weaknesses before we got there. So it was very, very, I think, powerful, and then it got the team to really bond quite strongly before we went to do some races that, honestly, probably for young guys, we were in over our head. Yeah. But we had a belief in ourselves that, hey, we did all this hard training. Let's go, let's go try it. It was funny because this is one thing Eddie liked was like, hey, you guys aren't at home. You don't have your girlfriend. You don't have any chores to do here. You don't have any, things to work on the house. You're very focused on cycling, which was totally true. We would just ride, we would eat, we would lay on bed, we would, maybe do some sightseeing every once in a while, but it was very focused on cycling. It was brutal.
Yeah.
It was one of those ones, whenever I always wanted to do, and I got called actually last minute for Subaru to do it because one of my teammates got sick, and I had just finished Pays Basque, the stage race. And they're like, well, let's call Bart. He'll do it. And so I got shipped up to France, and literally, I think it was 3-4 days before the race, that was the first year that RockShox introduced their road shocks. So we rode those in Paris-Roubaix, and they were changing all of our bikes, and we were doing some recon. And yes, I did not finish it. It was brutal, like I said. And it was very funny because I was in the peloton, and I can't remember who it was, but it was somebody, it was one of the Italians or someone who we had kind of gotten to be friends. And he was like, Bart, what are you doing here? Like, nobody under like 60 kilos does this race, and I didn't really realize what he was saying at the moment. But
yeah, when
I hit the first set of cobbles, and I think the first set of cobbles, I was in the top 20. And I came out in like 80th. Like, I was like, oh, now I understand. It's so much raw power. What I like about Amstel Gold is it's kind of like a video game. And you have to make it through each level, right, to keep going. Each hill is a level, each little town that you have to fight for position and make the splits, because, it keeps playing out. And the short, punchy climbs were very good for me. And also the handling, like squeaking in and out of small holes and taking chances in turns. Those were kind of things that I was good at. So Amstel Gold, anything like that was really fun. Like I said, it was just, you had to be concentrating too for a very long time. And I think a lot of guys get fatigued from that. And, that can be the end of their race. Actually, the end of 1990, we turned pro. And my very first pro race ever was the World Championships in Japan. Wow. On the Utsunomiya course. So what happened was I did not make the amateur team, even though I thought I was definitely deserving, but didn't make that cut. And Jack Symes, who was at that time US Pro, was separate from USA Cycling, and they called and invited me to ride the pro race instead. So I rode that race in support of Greg LeMond, and he ended up getting fourth. But it was on the Utsunomiya course, which was built specifically for the World Championships. And I remember that it was a really amazing U.S. team effort that day. We actually had like 10 guys in the race, and we really rode, obviously, for Le Mans the whole time. And we had to do a big team chase to get him back in the race. And he was very his gratitude was amazing, because he had never really had a team to help him. He'd always kind of done it really on his own with maybe a few guys. And this was a team that was like, we were all so excited just to be there. And Mike Engelman and myself and I think Hampton, we were the last three on the climb. The last time I remember going up the climb, I think it was 2 to go. And I finally got dropped, but it was because we had driven that field for like 4 laps, I think, of 3 or 4 laps. And it was a great show of teamwork that we were able to do that and actually get him back in contention, to actually go for a medal. So it was cool. On Saturn, fortunately, I had, good management and with Tom Schuler, and they were able to, give me the time, like after cyclocross, to not come, be racing full throttle. My goals were always a little bit later in the season. Except for one year we did that Tour of Malaysia, and I just actually rolled. I think that was the year also that I did the World Championships in Hoogerheide for cyclocross. So we went straight from cyclocross. I just kept training and then did Tour of Malaysia. I think I ended up like 6th overall. So it was a good transition. But then right after that, I was pretty much fried. I had to take a couple of months down, and I don't think I was back to myself until like June. So, you can't keep going forever at that level. So you have to be able to kind of pick and choose. And I had good management to do that. Yeah. I don't understand the big deal about gravel. We were doing this back in the 90s on 21 millimeter tires. Now, what do you need 40s for? Yeah. I tell people that all the time, and they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, that's what you did when you train on the same roads all the time, right? You're always looking for new ones. So I know here in Bend, Oregon, gravel has taken off because there are tons of forest roads everywhere, and they're safer. They're quieter. what is it though? It's the adventure. You're back outside having an adventure. And that's why I say outside riding isn't going to go away, because you can't simulate that adventure completely doing it online. I run a studio in Bend, Oregon now, and I really focus a lot on coaching and bike fitting. So, I could do probably a whole segment on bike fitting.